Hello, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a developing and highly tense situation unfolding right now between Belarus, Poland, and Lithuania. What started as a border logistics issue has now escalated into a full-blown crisis, with Belarus reportedly trapping hundreds of Polish and Lithuanian trucks at its border crossings. The situation is drawing the attention of the European Union, NATO, and Russia, as tensions in Eastern Europe once again begin to rise. This is not just a story about blocked trucks. It's about power, politics, and the growing pressure in a region that's already been on edge since the war in Ukraine began. Reports coming from multiple European news outlets suggest that Belarusian border officials have deliberately slowed or halted the movement of Polish and Lithuanian transport vehicles attempting to cross into or out of Belarus. Drivers have been stranded for hours and even days, some running out of supplies and fuel as they wait in freezing conditions. The Belarusian government claims this is due to security checks and customs procedures. But many analysts and European leaders are calling it what it really looks like: a politically motivated blockade, possibly ordered directly by Minsk as retaliation against new EU sanctions and border restrictions imposed on Belarus earlier this year. The situation has its roots in the growing tension between Belarus and its western neighbors, who have accused President Alexander Lukashenko's government of acting as a willing ally of Russia's military aggression. Poland and Lithuania, both NATO and EU members, have been among the strongest critics of Belarus's role in helping Moscow bypass sanctions and move military equipment near the European frontier. Recently, Lithuania even shut down several key crossings and introduced tighter border controls, citing security threats from Belarus. Minsk, however, saw this as a provocation, and now it appears Belarus is hitting back. At the heart of this crisis are the truck drivers, ordinary workers caught in the middle of a geopolitical confrontation. Videos circulating online show long lines of trucks stretching for kilometers on both sides of the border. Some drivers report being denied basic amenities like food or rest stops, while others claim Belarusian guards are conducting excessive inspections or simply refusing to process paperwork. For the transport industry, this is a disaster. Supply chains connecting Central and Eastern Europe are being disrupted, and several major logistics companies have already warned of serious financial losses. Polish and Lithuanian authorities have called the situation unacceptable and are demanding immediate clarification from Minsk. Poland's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement accusing Belarus of hybrid aggression, a term increasingly used in European circles to describe non-military actions aimed at destabilizing neighboring states. Lithuanian officials echoed that sentiment, saying this was a deliberate attempt by Lukashenko's government to create economic chaos and test NATO's resolve. In response, both countries have started preparing emergency transport routes to bypass Belarus, but such measures will take time and money. The European Union is watching this very closely. Brussels officials have already condemned Belarus's behavior and are considering additional sanctions. EU Commissioner for Transport, Adina Vălean, called the blockade a hostile act against the principles of free movement and trade within the European continent. Some member states are even discussing the possibility of closing all border crossings with Belarus if the situation continues, effectively isolating the country economically. However, such a move could also push Belarus further into Russia's arms, something the EU has been trying to avoid. Meanwhile, Belarus is defending its actions, claiming that Poland and Lithuania are the ones escalating the situation. The Belarusian Foreign Ministry accused both countries of staging a media provocation and insisted that any delays were due to routine border security measures. Lukashenko himself, in a televised address, said that Belarus will not be intimidated by Western threats, and that his country will act in its own national interest. He accused Poland of deploying additional troops to the border and warned that any violation of Belarusian territory would be met with a decisive response. Observers say that this is yet another example of Lukashenko's strategy of weaponizing migration and trade routes to pressure Europe. In previous years, Belarus was accused of pushing thousands of migrants toward EU borders as part of what was described as a hybrid attack on the West. Now, instead of people, it's goods, and the message seems clear. Belarus can disrupt Europe's economy whenever it wants to. The crisis is also serving as a reminder that the security of Europe's eastern border remains fragile and heavily influenced by the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Some analysts believe Russia may be encouraging or even coordinating Belarus's actions. Moscow has long sought to create friction between the EU and its eastern members, especially Poland and Lithuania, who have been among Ukraine's strongest allies. By allowing Belarus to apply pressure on these borders, the Kremlin can indirectly test NATO's response and distract European attention from other military developments. Whether or not Russia is directly involved, the timing is certainly convenient for Moscow, which has been facing renewed Western sanctions and diplomatic isolation. The trucking blockade is not just a border problem, it's a warning sign of how easily regional tensions can spill into global economic consequences. Major cargo companies are now reporting delays in deliveries across Europe, and energy transport routes are being reevaluated for security. Experts warn that if the standoff continues, it could have ripple effects on everything from food supplies to fuel prices in several EU countries. The humanitarian aspect is also concerning, as hundreds of drivers are stuck in freezing weather without adequate shelter or assistance. International organizations, including the United Nations and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe (OSCE), are calling for calm and dialogue. However, given the current political climate, it seems unlikely that either side will back down easily. Poland and Lithuania are determined to protect their borders and their sovereignty, while Belarus, backed by Russia, feels emboldened to push back against what it calls Western interference. The question now is whether this crisis will remain a border dispute or escalate into something far more dangerous. Experts are warning that this could become a serious test for NATO's eastern flank. If the situation worsens and leads to cross-border incidents, the alliance may be forced to respond more directly. Already, there are reports of increased military patrols and surveillance flights over the area. The fear is that a single miscalculation, a border clash, a provocation, or even an accident could ignite a chain reaction. As the standoff continues, truck drivers remain stranded, trade flows are paralyzed, and diplomatic tensions are reaching new heights. Both sides are blaming each other, but what's clear is that the Belarusian border has once again become a flashpoint in Europe's ongoing geopolitical struggle. The world is watching closely to see what happens next, whether diplomacy can defuse this crisis, or whether the border blockade becomes the latest symbol of division between East and West. So, as this situation develops, one thing is certain: the border crisis is not just about transport or customs, it's about control, influence, and the future of Europe's fragile stability. Stay tuned as we continue to follow this breaking story and bring you updates on how this escalating standoff could reshape the political landscape of Eastern Europe.